The 2020 NFL Draft is 3 years into their careers, and this class had some insane talent as well as some baffling selections. This class featured 4 quarterbacks in the first round, and even had a very good quarterback selected in the second round in Jalen Hurts. There were a lot of big names from the 2020 draft, and in today's video, we are going to be going back and grading picks 1 through 16 in reverse order. So we will start with Falcons corner AJ Terrell and finish with Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow. This will be a good trip down memory lane for some and a bad trip for others, and with 16 picks to dive into, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Falcons corner AJ Terrell. Terrell isn't the easiest player to grade because for as dominant as he was in 2021, he had a down year in 2022. In 2021, he was a second-team All-Pro player and allowed just 200 yards in coverage all year. He also had 3 interceptions. But in 2022, he had 0 interceptions, and to be clear, a corner isn't good or bad solely based on the number of interceptions they have, but per PFF, he allowed 9 touchdowns in 2022. Granted, he allowed 430 yards in coverage, which isn't bad, but he had a down year, and that's why it's so tough to grade. I do think he will get back on track in 2023 as the addition of free agent Jesse Bates should in theory only help him, but for now it is a B+. Jerry Jeudy is a player I've always thought was underutilized and a player that's a lot more talented than what the stat sheet shows. He had a bit of a breakout year in 2022 as he finished the year with 972 yards and 6 touchdowns, but I still think he can do more. Unfortunately, Jeudy has never had 1,000 yards in a year, and when he was drafted, he was supposed to be the guy along with Courtland Sutton and, believe it or not, Drew Lock as their quarterback for the next several years. Jeudy, like another player we will discuss in today's video, is a guy who will stick around for quite a while, and he has the talent to become a multiple-time 1,000-yard player. The only question is, will he? I don't think he will with the Broncos, and the grade is a C. Javon Kinlaw has played 24 games in 3 years and just 10 over the past 2. He has 45 tackles in his career, and this was the pick from the DeForest Buckner trade to the Colts. Ironically, Kinlaw's pro comparison coming out of South Carolina was Buckner, and a lot of people thought it would be a smooth transition and basically have DeForest on a rookie scale contract. But this is a perfect example of why teams will, in Indy's case, trade for a good player and not mind giving up a first-round pick in the process, because more often than not, you know what you're getting. Even when Kinlaw has played, he has not been good, and through 3 years, this is an F. Tristan Wirfs, the Buccaneers' right tackle, is up, and you can probably guess there will be at least one A+ grade later in the video, and we try to reserve those for the truly special players in the class. But in 3 years, Wirfs has 2 Pro Bowls to his name, along with 2 All-Pros. He is also a Super Bowl champion, and in 2022, he allowed 6 pressures on 696 pass blocking snaps, which is utterly insane. For reference, Lane Johnson, a first-team All-Pro player from this past year, allowed 11 in 651, which is still insane by the way, but that stat is to give you an idea of how dominant Wirfs is as a tackle. All of this to say, he was a plug-and-play player from day one, and when you already, at the age of 24, have not one, but multiple Pro Bowls and All-Pros, it's easy. This is an A+ pick. Henry Ruggs, the receiver from Alabama, went at pick 12, and we are going to discuss this and not just skip over it. I truly believe Ruggs would have become a high B+ or even an A- pick, as in the second season of his career, he was on pace for over 1,100 yards. His career is now over, and I'm sure you know why, but the grading of this pick is not an F, because how would Mike Mayock, the then general manager of the Raiders, have known this tragedy was going to happen? Nobody did. And in this situation specifically, I think the only grade you can give this is incomplete, because it's not the front office or the coaching staff's fault for why he's no longer in the NFL. So 3 years later, this is an incomplete grade for Henry Ruggs. Mekhi Becton is up, and there is an old saying about playing in the NFL that the best ability is availability, and to date Mekhi has played in 15 career games. And back in 2020, Mekhi wasn't bad by any means, but he wasn't this all-encompassing future star left tackle either. If there is any good news about Mekhi, as he's played in just one game since his rookie year, it's that he will be just 24 years old at the start of the 2023 season. But the Jets in a lot of ways have moved on, as missing 32 of the 33 possible games over the past 2 years will do that, and they are routinely being mocked left tackle in the upcoming draft. Mekhi is young and needs to get on the field, but for now it's a D-. Jedrick Wills, the tackle from Alabama, was drafted number 10 overall, and I think Browns fans are a little too hard on Jed at times, which kind of happens after you have a Hall of Fame left tackle play for your franchise for a decade in Joe Thomas. Jed is the definition of an average left tackle, and I don't think he will ever be an elite player, but I don't think he's a bad player either. And there is an old saying about first-round picks where 1/3 become stars, 1/3 are average, and 1/3 are busts, and Jed is the definition of average. He will probably be there for some time because more often than not, tackles do not hit the free agent market. So the Browns more or less got a starter for several years, and I think there could be a year or two where Jedrick plays at a Pro Bowl level, but for the most part, he is your average NFL left tackle, a B- grade. CJ Henderson was regarded as the second best corner in this class, and the Jags took him at number 9 overall. Henderson has not been a good player in any of his 3 seasons, and per PFF, when in coverage, he has a lifetime passer rating allowed of 113.5. For reference, Tua led the league this year with a passer rating of 105.5. So CJ has virtually been toast when targeted, and in 3 seasons he has given up 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. The Jags traded him in 2021 for Dan Arnold and a 3rd round pick, so we do give them some credit for getting a 3rd round pick back, but he has been a bust for number 9 overall. For the Jags, we give this a C-, but for clarity based on his performance, it is an F, but we do factor in the Jags at least getting something back on their poor investment. Isaiah Simmons, the do-it-all defensive player from Clemson, went number 8 overall, and this is an extremely tough player to grade. Like his pre-draft evaluation, he doesn't play just one position, and him not playing one position along with a new coaching staff makes this even more difficult. Through 3 years, Simmons has 258 total tackles, 7.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and even has 4 interceptions. He has been a solid player, but in 2022, his snap alignments were all over the place, as he played over 100 snaps on the defensive line, over 290 snaps at linebacker, and over 400 snaps in the slot. For now, we give this a B, but I am eager to see the role Jonathan Gannon carves out for him, because I think we are only scraping the surface of what Simmons can do as a player. Derrick Brown, the big fella from Auburn, is up, and if you look at his raw stats, you may think the Panthers drafted a bust, and that he was a terrible pick. However, Derrick had 40 pressures in 2022, and although he had just 1 sack, he had 67 total tackles and took the next step as a player. It is rare for a player in the middle of the trenches to dominate early, and Derrick was no exception. But in year 3, he did take the next step, and I do think this is a player the Panthers will have as a starter for the next 4 or 5 years, which would be close to a decade overall. He could very easily make a few Pro Bowls in the next couple of years, and 3 years later, we give this an A-. Justin Herbert has the most passing yards of any quarterback in NFL history through the first 3 years of their career, with over 14,000, and when he was coming out of Oregon, he was viewed as a boom or bust prospect, and he has certainly boomed. Unfortunately for him, quarterback wins are viewed as a huge part of their resume, and because he plays in a division with Patrick Mahomes, it's going to be extremely tough for the Chargers to go far in the playoffs, as in tougher than most teams. But Herbert himself has been everything they could have hoped for and then some. If his receivers stay healthy in 2023, which was a big problem last year along with a now-fired offensive coordinator in Joe Lombardi, Herbert could go for 5,000 yards for the second time in 4 years. He is a borderline top 5 quarterback, and this is an A+ grade. Tua Tagovailoa is up, and this is probably going to be the most controversial player to discuss in this class. Tua is a very good quarterback when healthy, and in 2022, he threw 25 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. He had a good head coach, and not one, but 2 great weapons to throw to, and we finally saw what he could do when Tua was unleashed. There was a point in the season where the Dolphins were undefeated in games Tua started and finished, and the people that hate or dislike Tua thought they won whenever the Dolphins lost to one of the best teams in the NFL when they lost in San Francisco. The obvious thing here is health, and if Tua can stay healthy, I think it could be a franchise quarterback for a long, long time. And I am eager to hear what you guys think, but we give this a B. Andrew Thomas was drafted at 21 years old, and not surprisingly, a 21-year-old rookie going up against 28 or 29-year-old grown men did not fare too well in his rookie year. He has improved vastly since, and even earned a second-team All-Pro in 2022. This is the definition of a player who starts poorly, but gets better as time goes on. And Thomas has played so well over the past 2 years, Giants fans are hoping the same thing happens with their 2022 first-round selection in Evan Neal, who struggled big time in his rookie season. A big part of a franchise's success is keeping the quarterback upright, and I think it's a matter of time until Thomas has multiple Pro Bowl and All-Pro selections. As crazy as this sounds, Dave Gettleman nailed this pick, an A+ grade. Jeff Okudah, the corner, went number 3 to the Detroit Lions, and unfortunately his career has been plagued by injuries. 2022 was the first year we've seen him consistently play, and while he wasn't a great number 3 overall draft pick worthy player, he wasn't bad either. I think Okudah is going to be a player that sticks around for a long time, as he is just 24 years old, and in theory, still has a long time to play at the NFL level. But lifetime per PFF, he has a quarterback rating of 108.2 and being targeted, which is not good. He will stick in the league and maybe even start for several years as a CB2, but there's a reason Detroit just signed Cam Sutton to a 3-year deal and will probably target a corner in the first round. Okudah was unfortunately not worth the number 3 overall draft pick, a D+ grade. Chase Young to the Commanders is up, and this is a player who won the Rookie of the Year back in 2020 and has played in just 12 games over the past 2 years. And it doesn't help Young's cause that he was having a sophomore slump in 2021 before he tore both his ACL and patellar tendon. So 3 years later, we're looking at a player who had a good rookie season, and yes, he did win the Defensive Rookie of the Year, but it wasn't an overly dominant rookie season by any means, and he has disappointed since. That's the biggest thing to remember, is he was disappointing before the injury happened. And for what it's worth, I do think he will bounce back in 2023, but for now, this is a C. Joe Burrow is up, and all he's done in 3 years is lead the Bengals to 5 playoff wins and have them be Super Bowl contenders year in and year out. The first playoff win of his career over the Raiders was the Bengals' first playoff win since the early 90s. And after Joe's dominant senior season at LSU back in 2019, the Bengals brought him back to Ohio, and they received everything they possibly could have hoped for and more when they were on the clock. The selection wasn't hard, and everyone knew he was going number 1 overall, but with increased pressure and almost unreal expectations, how would he respond? Well, it's pretty clear how he responded, but because of a Super Bowl loss, this is an A and not an A+, and all jokes aside, he played a ginormous part in turning this franchise around, and it is very clearly an A+. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and be very much appreciated. Until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.